What's going on, everybody? It's Monday. We're having fun. Um, while we're waiting for Rob to hop in here, go check out the YouTube where we put these videos up there every Tuesday-ish, sometimes Wednesday. Hey, Mel. Also, check out what other videos we've got up there. I mean, we've got a whole bunch of good ones up there. Riding with Rob. We've got In the Garage with Rob. A bunch of other good things. We're about to throw a bunch of other random videos up there. Also, go jump onto the Instagrams and onto the Facebook and share it with your friends. The more we can share it and the more we can get it out with people, the more fun we can have with everything that we're doing. Getting more people in there. Hey, what's going on, Alex? So, jump up onto the YouTube. Give that a subscribe. Watch some stuff. If you guys want to see something that we haven't done yet, let us know. Also on Fridays on our Instagram. What are you doing?
Trying to get small in here.
Also on Fridays on our Instagram, we do a little bit of a. God dang it! I can't work my phone right now.
10% smarter, babe.
No, my phone there. We do a shout out of our veteran members. Hey, what's going on?
What's happening, Marty? How are we doing today?
Oh, another day. I don't know. Apparently, I'm losing my voice.
Okay. Well, you better go find it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know where it's at. It's just not here.
So we don't need to post flyers or anything for it?
No.
Okay. All
What's
right.
up now? By the way, Malice is standing next to me.
So we may or may not get a cat in the camera again.
We'll most likely get one. Oh,
Most likely. Everybody, when you see camera cat, make sure to give us a thumbs up.
camera cat. There we go.
What's up, Ray, Alex? Oh, everybody joining us. Thank you so much. Welcome to another Monday night ATO. And today I am quite excited
For
our discussion today.
Oh, okay.
Well, last week, if you guys missed it, we talked about car video games kind of from a car guy perspective, and we started to get into a little bit of different kind of car shows that we like.
Right.
And I have discovered the greatest car show I've ever seen of all time. It was phenomenal. It's on Netflix, and it's called Overdrive. I know I messaged you about it. I'm not sure if you got a chance. You probably didn't, because I think it was like yesterday that I finished it.
I haven't gotten a chance to see it yet. And I mean, it only came out last Wednesday, so.
Well, let me tell you, I need season 2 right now. It was awesome. It was awesome.
It's a show on Netflix called Hyperdrive. It's like American Ninja Warrior for cars.
Yeah, it's this really awesome car competition, and yeah, it's basically a Ninja Warrior type thing, and it's I don't even know how to describe it. It's like if Gymkhana. I'm sure most of you guys have seen Ken Block's video of Gymkhana. Like, those are awesome, tons of fun to watch.
Been around for decades now.
Yeah, just crazy drifting and doing all kinds of stunts, right? So if you take that and you take Ninja Warrior and those two had a baby, that is what Hyperdrive is. So it's cool. There's a wide array of cars, which is like right up our alley, right? So you've got supercars in there, and you've got some purpose-built race cars. They even had some stock like Mustangs. This one girl was driving a V6 Mustang that was just basically had a drift handle on it, and that was it. Like, and it was just, man, is it cool?
Hey, that's awesome. I mean, the only thing that I can think of that has been on TV kind of like that in the last couple of years is Truck Night in America. Do you remember that show?
You know what? I never actually sat down and watched it. But I had heard of it.
I saw some of it. It was decent, but like some of the competitions that they did with the trucks were ridiculous. Like one of them was they were slingshotting toilets with their trucks. They would they would use their truck to pull the slingshot, and then they would release the slingshot, and whoever got the furthest toilet launch was the winner of that competition. That's what decides it, not the skill of the driver or the the toughness of the truck.
Yeah. Well, that's probably, you know what, I gotta say, one of the things I loved about it the most is that it didn't just rely on the skill of the driver, but also relied on the toughness of the vehicle as well. Because they did, so 6 episodes is 4 qualifying rounds, and then I think they
So
did
it's
2 knockout.
only 6 episodes.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it's 8 episodes.
Okay.
They kind of blurred together. I watched the whole thing. I just watched the whole thing. Just went for it. It was awesome. Um, so yeah, but it was really cool. They had all kinds of drifting obstacles, of course, where you actually have to drift, and there was like these stop sign looking targets with rubber balls in them. Becky always called them Dragon Balls because they were like bright orange, so they look like Dragon Balls. So you have to drift sideways and you hit the target, and it'd have to be like with the back half of your car. If you hit it with the nose of the car, or if you missed it, it was a time penalty. So they set up this race track course in like the middle of this abandoned factory. Honestly, it looks like it was filmed in Detroit. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what it looks like. And so they go through this course. They had water hazards that you had to navigate through, where there was like really deep, and then there was a path like that snaked through it, and you had to follow the reflectors if you could find them. And a few people drowned their cars. There was one girl in particular who completely knocked out of the competition. She seized her motor, and that was it. She was done. But yeah, it was cool. And then they had this thing on there called the leveler, right? So it's this big giant bridge, and at first all they had to do was see who could stop. It would be like this, and you'd see who could stop closest to the top. And the closer you stop to the top, the faster it would swing down. So the whole thing is timed, right? So, however, the further away you stopped, it took longer. After so many rounds, it got to the point where you actually had to balance this thing. And dude, it was cool. So they have like their spotter or whatever, right? The guy in the headset talking to him that was trying to help him out, and it was just something else.
Yeah.
Some of the people they had on there were just great drivers. It was awesome.
So what you're saying is, was everybody a professional like driver, or were they just kind of like random off the street people, or like should say like enthusiasts or whatever?
There were some people that were enthusiasts. What they said at the beginning of the video, or the beginning of the series, was that they went around and found the best amateur drivers that they could. So there were guys in there that race in Formula D. There were guys in there that raced with the SCCA. There were people that just did like donut and burnout competitions. They had people that did, just track racing and drag racing competitions, stuff like that. So they weren't necessarily professional drivers, but they weren't inexperienced.
So,
so
what you're saying is the skill of the driver was counteracted by what car they brought with them. So like somebody might not have been a very good driver, but the car that they had was set up perfectly for it, so it helped them out a lot more than somebody who might have had better skill but didn't have a car set up for it, right?
There were a couple guys that their cars were not set up to be able to drift and do because they had them doing everything from the reverse 180s, the 360 turns, just everything you could think of, they had to do it. The big donut drifts where they're hitting all the targets and stuff. High speed course work, the whole 9 yards. There were some guys' cars that just weren't set up. There was a guy who brought a drag race car, and he could not get that thing to go sideways. Which I mean, that was kind of good. It's a drag race car. It was a Datsun, one of those 240Z or whatever Datsuns.
Like that? Yeah, okay.
The older ones, right? I think it's a 200Z or something like that. But anyway, there was a guy there that brought a track car that he, it was one of those. It was the Mercedes SLK Coupe or whatever it is, right? The really expensive one. And he had it set up to it looked like it was set up for road course racing. Like it would not cut loose on him, or at least he didn't have the skill.
I actually watched a video on his story. He was on VinWiki like a couple days ago talking about that story.
Oh yeah. Okay. I gotta hear this.
He had a Viper originally when they came to him to talk about it, And he's like, all right, well, I don't usually keep cars very long, so let me know when filming's gonna be. Like 6 or 7 months later, they finally came up to him and they're like, yeah, hey, we're gonna start filming. You're gonna be, wherever in 2 weeks. Well, right before that happened, he was driving to a car show and crashed his car, lost control on the
Oh,
highway, crashed his car. So it was either find that car because it was one of the it was one of those like time attack Vipers, so it was
yeah.
really rare, so it was hard to find part. Oh, camel
Ah!
cat.
Everybody's got to give a thumbs up to Timbercat.
um, so it was really hard to find parts for it. So it was one of those things of, does he bow out and rebuild his car, or does he find something else? And so his buddy sold him that Mercedes, and they started building on it and working on it and doing all this other stuff. They put a cage in it. They put the drift brake in it, but it's not set up to have a drift brake. So when he would pull the drift brake, it would cut out the power to all the brakes. So he's like, I couldn't use it, and they're trying to get him to use the drift brake, and he goes, it doesn't work. They're like, well, why doesn't it work? He's, because the car won't allow it to work.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
Those are one of those ones that have like the electronic e-brake on them, right? The parking brake switch. Yes.
Yeah, and he said,
Those
and then he
systems
said
don't
that
work.
there was another thing where he blew out the steering rack while he was trying to do the donuts, and it was like a $7,500 part, and somebody told Mercedes that this guy's racing this car, don't warranty it, and so
Oh,
they wouldn't warranty the part.
damn. Well, I gotta say his run, because he lost right away in his qualifying.
I kind of figured as much with the way that he was talking about the car happening.
Yeah, well, if he had that many problems with the car, I mean, it was a bad choice. Let me just say right away, it's definitely a bad choice to bring.
He said that they never told him what they were doing,
No,
so he didn't know. He didn't know what kind of car to bring.
Right. Well, that's the thing that a lot of people ran into when they got into qualifying. There was a guy there that had there was a C6, or maybe it was C5. I think it's C6 Corvette. Definitely not set up for stunt work or anything like that. And I don't think that the guy that was driving, he was an experienced driver, but I don't think he'd ever done any kind of drifting or anything like that. Camera cat again. That's double likes from everybody. But yeah, so he went through the course. It's spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it, but he goes through the course, and to kind of circumvent the rules, he pulls up to the first thing that he's supposed to drift into, and he opens the door and goes, and just knocks it with the door. And I was like,
Hey.
And not knowing that, that those guys, like they said, hey, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into, which, okay, I understand. You don't know what kind of car to bring. I mean, I would have showed up in this. I don't know what I would have done. I would have learned how to drift real quick. What's up, Jason?
I mean, theoretically, you could have probably gotten away with some of that with that one, but.
And I mean, I would have had to be. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a bad driver. I don't think I have the skills to pull off a lot of the stunts with a front wheel drive car that they were doing. But most of the drift cars and most of the people who had a versatile experience in racing did really well. But it was just, man, it's such a cool concept for a competition where you've got this course set up and it's all timed and there's time penalties for targets missed. It was set up very well. I think that they should have done maybe a few more things that would have been more towards I want to say like track driving, because it was mostly set up for drift stuff. But
what was the scoring? How was it scored? Was it just time?
So yeah, it was all time, and then each obstacle you could rack up so much penalties on, right? So like, for instance, they had this one obstacle called the Gauntlet, right? And it was a narrow road, like a one-lane road, and they had swinging targets coming back and forth across the road. And you had to drive as fast as you could through there. That section was timed, and each target you had to hit all 3 targets, but each target you missed was a 10-second penalty, and if you go off the road, it was a 60-second penalty. So,
Okay.
yeah, so it was like that's how the scoring worked. And
Do
then
you
one of my
go ahead?
hang on a second. One of my favorite parts. I love the whole show, but one of my favorite parts, I just thought of this, I'm gonna forget, was the head-to-head knockout rounds. So once they got past the qualifyings, and they started to get later in the rounds, they did these knockout rounds where 2 people raced head-to-head, and it was a zigzag course like this, and you had to drift into a target. Drift into a target at each corner, and on the center straight, they had a shipping container you had to drive through. And then at the very end of the course, there was a barrel turn you had to do where you did a donut around the barrel, and then you could take off to the finish line. This one dude on there, I'll never forget his name because it was weird. His name was Shredder, and he had this crazy S14 Sylvia Nissan drift car, and he went flying through that shipping container just flat out, knocks the mirror, hits the drift perfectly, then goes flying towards his barrel turn, turns the car around backwards so he enters in, comes back out, and drifts around back. Just absolutely nuts. Just some of the coolest driving I've seen in a long time.
So, do you remember a show? Shoot, God, long time ago now. Bull Run.
Bull Run. Didn't The
Yeah.
Rock host that, or was it? No,
No,
it wasn't The
Goldberg.
Rock. Goldberg hosted that. You know what?
Yeah.
It's such an oddball show. I caught part of it, and I've tried to find it so I could actually watch it, and I've only ever seen a few here and there.
Okay, so the theory of it was basically like a cannonball run. It was they started in one city and they drove across the country. But each checkpoint, they did a competition to like knock somebody out of the running.
Right.
I'm wondering if that Hyperdrive show, would be more interesting if they did something along the lines of like, because they did some interesting, like competitions to see who got knocked out.
Right.
So I'm wondering if they incorporated some more of that off the wall, just like kind of almost stunt driving type stuff in the next season, to where it was like, if it doesn't matter what kind of discipline of driving you do.
Vanishing Point. Is it
Yes.
a car movie?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, you will. But if you I wonder if you
Matt,
did
thanks
it
for
to
the
where
comment.
it doesn't matter what kind of discipline of driving you do, that each person is on a level playing field.
Right.
So,
Well, for the most part, I would say that if you were an experienced driver and your car could handle it, it was pretty fair game for the most part. I mean,
mhm.
there was a few things that were like, okay, you really have to have a drift car in order to do this, but you know, it was just so cool. It was so versatile. One of my favorite guys, his name was Atsushi. He was from Japan. He was Atsushi. I'm just saying. It was literally AT Sushi. That's just what it was. He does a drift school in Japan. That's what he does for a living. And he
Okay.
had this old Toyota cop car from, I'm assuming it's actually a cop car from Japan. And it was just one of the coolest things. It was such an odd car to see. That was one of the things that I really liked about it, was just the difference of cars. So you had Mustangs, and you had Camaros, and you had a Lamborghini, and you had the SLK, and you had you had several different 240 SXs. So you had an S13, 14, and even a 15 in there. I think they were all in there.
Okay.
There was an 1986 BMW E28. Mercedes-Benz, forget what that newer coupe is. But they just, so many cool different things. Oh, there was a Dodge Charger, a 69 Dodge Charger in there.
Okay.
That guy, he was from France, but that guy's got some balls, because he was drifting that big, huge, massive car, and he was taking it through shipping containers, and I was like, dude, you got to be kidding me.
those things aren't too bad to drift because the longer the vehicle, the lot easier it is to straighten it back out.
The harder it is to get it to
Right.
control it though. Like once you get it sideways, getting it back under, because you got to
Well,
kick that back end out, and that's a lot of momentum to
once you
overcome.
kick
You
that back
really
end
got to.
out, yeah. Oh, believe me, yeah. Because we used to do it. We used to do it in my blue F-150 before I had it lifted, and it was a lot. It was easier for my buddy who had a extended cab long bed to straighten his back out than it was for me to do it with my single cab. I mean, my extended cab short bed because it was just the longer
Hi,
the
Jason.
longer the vehicle, it just wanted to go back straight. But so what you're saying is for the most part for this season that they had, it was rear-wheel drive cars or you were screwed.
Yeah, I could definitely see somebody going in there with some good driving skill doing the all-wheel drive cars, because I mean that's what like Ken Block and stuff drives. Obviously, he's like top tier when it comes to driving
Right,
ability.
right.
Um, but it was really like you really have to be in control of your vehicle. They had so many different spots where the course would narrow down, and there was one in particular where it was a flat out sprint, and as you sprinted down here, the shipping containers would get narrower and narrower, so you got to the end, and they had like balsa wood set up,
Mhm.
and you had to fit in between there, and it was a 6-inch clearance, so 3 inches on either side of you, and if you nicked it even just a little bit, it was a 5-second penalty, and then the more you hit, the more penalties it was.
Okay.
Um, but it was really really cool. Um, yeah, it was all rear wheel drive cars,
That's
and
what I'm like.
except for that Lamborghini. Excuse me. Becky just mentioned it in the comments. So the Lamborghini was an all-wheel drive Lamborghini, um, but he had some switch in there that he'd hit, and it would go into two-wheel drive, so he could drift it. That guy he had a really fast car because it was over 1,000 horsepower,
Right.
and he was an okay driver. He stayed in the competition way more than he should have, just because he had enough horsepower to where he got into the high speed sections and no one could really do anything about it. No one could catch him or
Right.
anything like
Right.
that.
Right.
But they did so many different things where, like, for instance, the water trap I think they called it walk on water, where you had to snake your way through this water trap. And there were so many cars there that were set up to be race cars that, like, they don't have fender wells and they don't have, the under stuff. So they're going through this thing and it's drowning their engine. And
Right. Right.
then there was the people there that had like regular street cars. This one girl in particular, she had a V6 Mustang, and she was like, "I'm just talented enough to drift it." Which I was like, "Okay, let's see it." And she was. I was actually pretty impressed. She could drift this stock V6 Mustang, and she was putting up some decent times too. Um, but like her car, she went through the water, not a big deal, because the car's made to repel that kind of water, getting splashed up, and it's
Right.
totally
Right.
fine. Stock airboxes and stuff like that are totally fine. Um, yeah, you definitely have to up. Sorry, Jason. Yeah, you definitely have to up the horsepower. But all the cars there were. I mean, well, not all the cars. There was a couple that weren't, but most of the cars there were heavily modified. Um, and it was just really cool to see the different builds and stuff. Just neat.
So my question is, one, if you were to do this show, what would you do differently? And two, if you were going to redo this show, would you make it to where it didn't matter what kind of car you had, like all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, it didn't matter what you had, that you'd be able to hold your own in it?
Yeah, I think that if I were to do the show, the only thing that I would really do differently, mm,
Maybe
I
have
think that
classes?
nah, not even classes, because the way that the course was set up and the way that the penalties were set up, it was a very level playing field. So, like the guy with the 1,000 horsepower Lamborghini wasn't putting up the fastest time every time, and the
Right,
guy
right.
that was the most skilled driver wasn't putting up the fastest time every time. So it was a really level playing field. Um, I really don't know what I would do a whole lot differently, um, other than maybe tell the drivers like what it is that they're going to be doing, so they can set up their cars a little bit better.
Right.
Instead of just like these guys are showing up and they've got this crazy obstacle course that they got to go through. I don't know, the all the different obstacles and stuff they had were really good. I think that maybe personally I would do a time attack section in there where instead of having to drift into the targets, you would have a set course and you'd have to get through it, and you'd actually have to hit the targets with the nose of your car, because they'd put them on like the apex of the corner, right, as the perfect driving line. And if you're not hitting that perfectly, you're not going to hit that target. Yeah, I'd agree with you there, Becky. A real audience would have been nice. Personally, I would love to go watch that live. The only audience that they had, like the live audience, was all the drivers. So all the drivers from the whole competition stayed the whole time, and they were, got to cheer and stuff. And then some of the drivers' families and things. So yeah, live audience I think would be cool.
If I'm correct, if I remember correctly, they did that over the course of a weekend or something like that. They filmed the whole thing over the course of a weekend.
Yeah.
Or
well, that's what they were saying.
A couple of days.
They did it. Each competition was every night after night after night, which really took a toll on the cars. A lot of people's cars broke down. The guy with the Challenger. Spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it. It'll still be awesome. It doesn't matter that I'm spoiling it for you. It'll still be amazing. So the guy with the Charger broke his strut tower and ripped his passenger side front tire just completely under the car. The girl with the BMW E28, she drowned her engine. That blew. There was a guy there from France, and he had an S13 Sylvia 240 SX, for those of you who don't know, early 90s, body style, that really wedge shape. And his engine drowned the first time he went through the water. He managed to clear the water out, get it started again, and he basically blew the piston rings on his car. And every night that he raced it, the car was smoking a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. He made it all the way to the finals on a basically a blown engine.
Do you think that?
That was really cool.
Do you think that the self-preservation of knowing that it's your car hindered these people a little bit, or did it help them out because it was their car and they're used to it?
I think it helped them more than it hindered them. I think a lot of them were used to their cars, and honestly, watching the way these people drove, because the one guy crashed his car 2 or 3 times. He just kept driving, just kept zip tying it back together. I mean, seriously, like. I don't know why he's not on ATO, because he fixed his car with zip ties. He had a problem with the water trap, so he went to Walmart and he bought mud flaps and a garbage can to waterproof his engine bay. I mean, this guy was my hero. This is my guy right here.
But no, see, what I'm saying is that, because after the competition's over, yeah, you didn't win, and now your car is fucked up. So. Right. Do you want to do just enough to where you do good, or do you want to push it just far enough to where you might blow your car up, you might do this, you might do that, even if you don't win? You know what I mean? Because like the guy from France, say he blew his car up, now he's got to bring a dead car back to France. Yeah,
he's got to bring a dead car back to France.
You know what I mean? Like, it's.
But I will say this: whatever he did to that engine, it just kept running. It was like an Energizer's battery, just kept going and going. Oh yeah, that's right, that Farouk guy. So he had like the BMW, it was like an M3 coupe or whatever, right? And he kept breaking. He kept breaking too, and he was. Yeah, I would definitely say it was messing with him. But and then also one of the things that happened to that guy too, that he's got it like it's a newish BMW. His name was Farouk, and during the head-to-head competition, he's racing against the Lamborghini, and he smokes the Lamborghini, just absolutely smokes this thing. Like he nails everything, but he got a time penalty because on the first drift, he kicks the car sideways, and he's so far out into the drift that he hits the target with the front end of his car first, and the rest of his car swings through the target. Like his whole car hit the target, like his whole
Right.
car did, but they still gave him a time penalty. I think that they should have let the drivers at least have a vote on that because it was a you're out of the competition ruling. Like I
Yeah.
think the drivers should have been able to be like, you should have let you should have said this is the official ruling, but we're gonna let at least let the drivers, because most drivers know what they're looking at and go, okay,
Mhm.
that guy, he hit the target, like
Yeah.
he hit the
Right.
target, like yeah, it touched the front first, but the rest of the car hit that whole target area, like. So I think that maybe that would improve the show just a little bit. But yeah, like Jason said, if you're breaking your car, that's the risk of racing, man. That's just the
Well, I
risk of
know.
racing.
I'm just
And I
saying.
think that
Go ahead.
I think that it kind of adds to the suspense of the show. Like
No.
in the
Yeah.
back,
Yeah.
and definitely it's definitely got to add to at the very least it adds to the pressure that's on these drivers, because it's not just some silly competition. It doesn't really matter. They're gonna fix my car. They've given me a car that I'm gonna break, and who cares? Like it kind of adds to that pressure and suspense. Like that's this person's car. Like they built
Well,
it.
that's
That
what I'm
whatever.
saying. Like, that's what I was saying. Do you think that some of them held back a little bit because it was their car and they've spent so much money into it that they didn't want to, break it?
Maybe. But if you
You
watch the
know,
show, it's really hard to tell by just watching it. We're
right?
talking about Hyperdrive on the Netflix. That's what we're
Yeah,
talking about today.
it's a new TV show that came out Wednesday.
Yeah, it
Wednesday.
just came out. It just came out, and I watched. I was like, I was bored, and I'm like, well, I'll watch the trailer. We'll see if this stupid show is gonna be any good. And I was
Ooh.
like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Watch the first episode. I'm like, yep, this is my show. This is it right here.
This is my
This is
show.
awesome.
I,
Yep,
I
I'm
I
on it.
wonder. You know what it would be cool is if they did almost like we were talking about earlier, a Bull Run style almost, where they did it in different cities.
Hmm.
Say like one season was here and then another season was here. But I liked the whole thing about Bull Run because it gave people a time advantage.
Yeah.
It gave people
I'm just ignoring.
I know I
I'm
sound
just ignoring
funny.
Jeff. Jeff may or may not be here. I'm ignoring him.
But it gave people like a time advantage. So you race to the next checkpoint, and whatever time you got there, it helped you out a little bit. And so, like say however you did during that competition, it gave you a little bit of a time advantage, so you could leave a little earlier than everybody else to get to the next checkpoint. But it wasn't the way that they did it was they didn't have a set route. You had to make your own route to the next checkpoint. So
Right.
some people got lost, some people went down the wrong roads and had to backtrack. So it was an interesting show.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
mean,
it would definitely like I get where you're coming from, because it definitely was a cool show. Bull Run was definitely cool. But the way that they have this competition set up, honestly, like I would like to see this on a regular basis. Like honestly,
yeah,
I would
yeah.
watch this as regular racing season year after year. Um, the one of the
would
things
you
that I
would you watch it if it was a kind of I don't want to say NASCAR type event. Kind of one of those things where once a month they did a competition on TV for it.
yeah,
You know
definitely.
what I mean?
But well, I would have one stipulation, and that would be
Oh,
that I wouldn't honestly, like, because they didn't go out and get professional drivers and professional teams. You didn't have this massive money dump go into these cars. Well, some of them, okay, you had like one or two that really did, but most of them were people's cars that they built. They put them together in their garage, or
mhm,
they
right.
race on the weekends, and they've got a small shop that they work with. Um, so if they were to do that, if they did a once a month competition, yes, I would watch it 100% every day. Love it. And
What?
no, he's talking about the bull run, the Amazing Race. Yeah, it does sound similar. It does. Oh, that's all right.
Well, Amazing Race didn't have anything to do with cars.
Well, they did one time, and it was awesome because no one could drive stick. They,
That's
they dropped them
horrible.
off in Italy. They rented I think they were somewhere in Europe, and they rented a bunch of cars, and they're like, okay, you have to drive from point A to point B, and you have to find your way. And everybody got in the car and was like, do you know how to drive stick? Yeah. No. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So I would totally watch it, but my stipulation would be this. There had to be a money cap. You have to provide the money cap receipts for your driver, for your mechanic team, and for your car. Like, there has to be a cap on it. Like, you have to cap it off, because otherwise it happens with every racing team and every racing sport. The guys with the most money, you know, you've got 2 or 3 guys that have just tons of money, and they just throw it at the car and throw it at the car and throw it at the driver. And
we've talked about this before.
You
Money doesn't buy you a win.
Well, it can. I mean, let's be honest. I could be the best drag racer in the world, and if you put me in a Mitsubishi Mirage and you put some average driver in a Bugatti Veyron, I'm going to lose that drag race every single time. It's just what's going to happen.
Right.
So there is a money advantage. What I'm saying is if we could somehow mitigate that advantage, if we could regulate what that advantage would be, like,
but like you said before, that Lamborghini wasn't putting up the top numbers every time.
Right, which is what I true.
You know what I mean? Like, so
if you were to build,
if you've got a competition that levels the playing field where it doesn't really matter what car you've got, then it's more along the lines of the skill of the driver behind the wheel of that car.
Right. Well, that's what I liked about the competition was that it did have a nice level playing field. But if that guy who bought that Lamborghini and set it up also hired a professional driver, nobody would have beat him.
True.
It just wouldn't have happened. So saying that there's a cap, I don't know what it would be. I don't know what it costs to really build.
Or even if you wanted to do it until, like what we were saying before, have classes. You can do an under so many dollar class and an over so many dollar class.
Yeah, you could do that. I would be completely uninterested in the over so many dollars.
Yeah.
I like the under so many dollar guys. Those are my guys.
Yeah. What was the
Jay?
prize?
I believe the time that you saw me drive, sir, it was from behind me as I smoked you on that track, bro. Just saying.
Oh, are we talking about go-karts?
Yeah, there was electric go-karts. But I did have the fastest time.
Electric go-kart? Oh, man.
It was the indoor kart track in your old stomping grounds over there. The Mokina area.
There's an indoor go-kart track over there?
Yeah, we had this conversation like 6 months ago, man.
Hey, there's an indoor go-kart track in Mokina.
It's awesome. Too bad you live in a different state now.
Yes, but I don't know if you got my message or not the other day.
Maybe.
You should look through your messages.
He's a fucking liar.
I'm gonna check them. Yes, accelerate. That's what it was. Accelerate.
There was one.
And it was a lot of fun.
There was one in Kansas City when I was down there. That was an indoor track as well. It was pretty awesome. What was like the prize for winning this competition, or was there even one?
It was a trophy.
That's it?
That's it. It was a trophy.
Okay, no. I was just wondering because a lot of the times these competitions are like, a new car or $50,000 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I was surprised because the whole time they were talking about, we're going to crown our champion, but that was it. They just crowned the champion.
So and I think bragging rights.
Yeah. You know what? That might even just be just enough incentive to keep the teams, big fancy race teams out of it.
Yeah,
just like, hey, the only thing you get is a trophy and bragging rights.
Mm-hmm. A lot of these big racing teams are going to be like, so hold on a second. I have to bring my car down there. I have to risk damage to said vehicle at however much money it is to fix it. And all I get is a trophy? Yeah, I'm out. Sorry.
Yeah. You know what? That just might just be just enough to
I
be
like
like,
it.
yeah.
Actually, I like that. That's a lot better.
And the guy who won, the guy who won, honestly, was. I mean, you could argue who the top driver was, but he was definitely one of the top 3 drivers.
Okay.
I would say it definitely 100. I'm not going to give that part away because at the very least, I'll give you the suspense of who's going to win. But the person, I should say, the person, not the guy, the person who won was definitely deserved it. Definitely deserved it. Was phenomenal driver and was just absolutely awesome. Wasn't the guy that I wanted to win, but I have to say, like, most of the competition, especially when they got to the head-to-heads, I was like, I don't know who to root for. I want both of these people to stay in the competition. I'm loving this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Jay. When it's just it was such a cool concept for a competition, and I just, dude,
I'm happy because they tried to do the American Top Gear, and it kind of fell flat. Bull
No, it
Run
didn't
lasted for what, 3 seasons? I think
Yeah.
3 seasons.
They were on a bad.
It was fun, but I think this is the new. This is going to be the new thing for at least a couple of years, until something another automotive show decides to come out. Which is cool.
It's a little bit of Formula Drift. It's a little bit of like rally cross. There's a little bit of stunt driving and a little bit of odd obstacles, like the leveler, or like they had this rail slide, which is really cool to actually watch somebody do. They had these 2 big rails, and you had to drive the car and off a ramp and onto these 2 rails and basically grind like a freaking skateboard your car, just straight down the rails. And it was just really cool.
Kind of like what Rob Dyrdek did with that Mustang.
Yeah.
That was
cool.
Pretty cool. That was actually pretty cool.
It was cool.
No, like, you know what? One thing that I used to watch all the time was the Top Truck Challenge. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not.
No, I don't think I've ever seen Top Truck.
What it was is there's an off-road magazine.
Yeah. I was trying to avoid saying that, though.
What?
Becky just brought up that. Yeah. Okay, so you were just mentioned that American Top Gear completely failed. So when I first turned on the show, one of the hosts is from the American Top Gear show, Rutledge Wood.
Yeah.
And that guy even got his own spin-off show, and I gotta be honest, I don't want to say I hate the guy, but I don't necessarily like him either. I'm sorry, Rutledge. I know he probably watches our show. Of course he does.
Oh, of course.
Because everybody does.
Who doesn't?
So I apologize for the harsh criticism there, but he's a goofball, and he's a little he's really knowledgeable about cars, which is always a saving grace for me with people. He's annoying, but at least he knows cars. So there's that factor. But when I first saw him, I was like, oh no, Rutledge Wood is on this show. This is not going to go well, because I haven't liked any of the shows he's been on. I just haven't. And it's weird because he's kind of the out of the 3 hosts, he's the car expert, right? So
right.
They're always asking him questions about, and he actually knows his stuff, but he's also kind of weird and annoying. But
he built some pretty cool cars, though. I don't know if you've seen some of his stuff.
I have such a hard time watching that show of his. When it came on, I was like, "Oh, this could be cool," and I just sorry, Rutledge, I just don't like you.
What?
It's so mean to say. I'm sorry. That's so.
But no, so like I said, there was a show that I used to watch. It wasn't really a show. It was more. It was like a DVD, but they would put it up on YouTube. It was called Top Truck Challenge. What it was an off-road magazine would pick readers' rides, and they would pick so many. I think it was 10 or 11 of them, and they would do a bunch of different off-road obstacles, and whatever truck lasted through all of the obstacles that didn't break, that got the best score that did not qualify and everything like that
Right.
would be crowned the winner. And they
That's
had
cool.
and it was really cool. It was a lot of fun. You should look it up. It's really fun. But
Oh, definitely. I'm going
there's
to.
so many
100%.
there's so many options out there that are really cool, but they don't put them on TV. You don't really get a chance to see them unless you like search them, hunt them down, and search for them, which
Right.
is cool because Netflix has this on there, and you can go up there and look at it. It's kind of mainstream almost,
Yeah.
so that's cool.
Jay's starting shit. Um, yeah, I like that idea of choosing readers'
Mhm.
rides. I think that the whole, there's just a trophy. There's no major prize. There's no
Mhm.
special award. There's a trophy that you get that nobody else has. Like
Right,
that
right.
in and of itself is awesome. Um, I think that that would definitely be something that they should do is instead of letting professionals or massive race teams come in, if they were to pick like fans rides, like fans that are at the very least like have a tryout, right? Like if
Yeah.
you make it through the tryout, you can then go, the one
Did
guy through this tryout, whatever, gets to go onto the show. Like that'd be pretty cool. I'd be down for that. I'd watch that too.
did they have a kind of um what I don't know, like a showcase of how each car was set up, or did they just go, here's so and so with this car, and they went along with it?
Yeah, there wasn't really a showcase on how the cars were set up. As the cars came out, they sort of kind of talked about what the car was, what kind of engine was in it,
Mm-hmm.
and that type of thing. And then, kind of a little bit of how the car was set up, but not a whole lot. So, like, for instance, the guy with the Dodge Challenger came out and they were like, he's been building this car for a while. It doesn't have your traditional V8 in it. He's got a BMW turbocharged V8. Um, and that was about the most that you would really get out of as far as like setups and stuff would go. They did say, like, hey, he's brought his drifting car with him. He's brought his drag race car with him. But they
Right.
didn't really go into the massive like this is how this guy had his stuff set up type of thing.
Do
So
you think, being a car guy, do you think that would be cooler to have something like that, to where like at the very beginning of the show when they kind of introduce everybody, kind of go into a little bit of depth of like who the person is and what kind of car they've got and what they've done to it and stuff like that? Or do you think that how they did it was sufficient?
no,
Because
how they did it was definitely not sufficient for me for my needs. Um, I would say there was, they did the whole like how they do on Ninja Warrior, where they go and they talk about the person and their family and
right, okay,
kind of showcase their life. Um, I would have rather them do much briefer segments on these people's lives and done more in that time slot about the car that they're
right,
driving and how they set it up and stuff. There was stuff that was relevant where they talked about how like this son and dad, they work as a team. They build the car together, they race together. Dad's the coach, son's the driver. That type of thing.
mm-hmm.
And that was cool. That was relevant. Um, but I would have loved to heard about more about the guy the car that they built together. That they had this Mustang. I know it was turbocharged V8, but that was it. I didn't know much else about it.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
so it was, you know, yeah, I would definitely like to see more of a showcase on the car and how it was built and how it was put together than on the person's life. Like I get that the life and stuff is the person is relevant and you're trying to make me care about the driver and be excited about the driver, but when you've got a show like that where it's a diversity of cars, which is what I really like. I don't care about who's behind the wheel. As long as there are a bunch of different cars and they're all set up
Mm-hmm.
kind of different and they're all been built differently and in different ways. Um, that is really cool and really interesting to me. I guess maybe it's a little more mainstream to talk about the person and their
Right.
family and stuff to kind of get you to be like invested a little bit emotionally in the person and their performance. But Yeah, I would have liked to see just if they could split that in half, give me 50% car, 50%, emotional, blah blah blah.
Well,
We would have been a little bit better off.
the reason why I ask is because I mean, say you're a 16-year-old kid who just got into cars, right?
Yeah,
And you're thinking about building something along the lines of what these people have. Seeing how these people have put stuff together and learning, learning the lingo and the stuff that these people have done and how much work that they've put into it. As that young 16, 17-year-old kid, you learn. You're like, okay, these people have put some serious time into it. They've done this, they've done that, and it works. That way, where you have an idea of where to start instead of, I want to build this car. What do I do?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I think like a lot of these shows that show off these cars it'd be interesting, especially if they're not like a professional race team that is competing for serious money. Like some of these guys go out and do drag racing or drifting on the weekends and stuff like that. If you were to kind of show your setup to where people could learn how you've set your car up and what you're doing with your car, to where they can adapt that to what they're working on, I think that would be a lot cooler than just be, hey, this is my drift car, and then they go drifting.
Right.
Because some people learn by seeing and hearing, oh, they used this part or they used this kind of thing. Like
Right.
as stupid as it sounds, back in Fast and Furious, where the parts store guy was like, listen, whenever Dom drives, all the parts for his car fly off the shelves. I can't keep them in.
Right.
And so it's one of those things of, if you were to make it more education, I wouldn't say educational, but more in depth into kind of how the car is set up and stuff like that, more people would, a lot of people who are really into working on cars and stuff like that would be more intrigued in the show. And I think you'd get more viewership and more, I wouldn't say, more people starting to get into the hobby and stuff like that than if you just go, hey, this is a race car and these people are racing it. Cool.
Right. Right. Well, I think that I do agree with you in the sense that it would be nice to see more about the cars and how they're set up, specifically to do the kind of stunts and stuff that they did. But one of the things I thought was that the show did really well was that they focused on the driving skill aspect of it.
Right,
where,
right.
like I said, you had that girl with the stock Mustang V6. There was another guy in there that had. There was quite a few Mustangs. There was a guy in there who had a Mustang GT that was stock, and it was more focused on these people have the skill to drive the car this way. You had several people that ran drift schools. Several people that drove in some kind of driving competition type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it seemed more that they were more focused on trying to emphasize, like, this takes skill to do.
Right.
Like, you don't just go out and buy a Mustang GT and then you can drive it sideways. Like, you're gonna crash the car, which is why most of them end up crashed. Just look it up on YouTube. They're all crashed, all of them.
Well, that's because they like to go after crowds. I don't know why.
Well, they've got that crowd-seeking missile front end, is what it is. That's the horse on the front. It's meant to seek out the crowd. So it's just like,
oh, okay, I got you. It's a homing horse.
That's how it was designed. It was designed that way. That's why it works. But no, I agree with you. I'd like to see more on the cars and more on the setups and what the people had to go through to build these cars and put them together.
Yeah.
But it did do a very good job, I think, of taking the non-car person, right, and saying, look at these people, they're really cool, but it's not just the car, it's the person themselves who has the skill to do this. It's something you can learn. It's something you can go and go to a driving school or whatever and learn these types of skills, which I thought was cool.
You two can learn how to do this It's just
Right.
it's going to take you a little bit of time, but you don't need $1 million to go out and build a car to be able to do
Right.
this. You can that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool that they're showing people that, hey, it doesn't matter what you've got. If you train hard, you can learn how to do it yourself.
Right. Right.
I got
It was
you.
just, yeah, that was like more of the focus. But like I said, I would like to see a little bit more about the cars themselves and how they were set
Yeah,
up.
especially that you said that Challenger with a BMW V8 in it. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know what went into swapping that out, because that sounds interesting.
It was definitely, I mean, the car performed really, really well. The guy that was driving it, he was a talented driver. He was comfortable in the car. It was by far the biggest car in the competition.
I wonder what caused him to do that. Like, did he blow the engine originally, and then he's like, "Well, this is what I can find," or
I don't know. You know what? To be honest, I kind of assumed that because he was from outside of the United States, that it was just easier to get.
this is what I'm saying. Like,
Maybe like,
say kind of
you know,
like in Tokyo Drift, in Fast and
yeah,
Furious, where he's got the Mustang, but they don't have an engine for it, so they just grabbed the engine that they had sitting over here and stuck it in there.
Marty, please tell me you know what engine that is.
Huh?
Tell me you know what engine it is that they. And I know it's a Fast and Furious movie. Please tell me you know the engine that they put in the Mustang
I haven't even
in
paid
Tokyo Drift.
it in forever.
Come on. It's a Nissan engine. It's a straight six. It's turbocharged. It's very, very famous.
I'm gonna say the RB26.
You are correct, sir. Thank you very much. You are
I know.
correct. Totally knowledgeable.
But no, so I mean, like, that, some of that backstory kind of stuff like that would be really interesting to see, because
It would be because, yeah, what decision making went into saying, you know what, I'm going to get the BMW V8.
Right.
Like, is it a common swap where he's from, where it's like the LS swap here? He's got the, well, there's a million BMWs sitting in the junkyard. I'm going to grab one of those V8s.
Is it lighter? Does his driving style, does his driving style benefit from how that engine performs? Because
Right. Does it rev higher?
Some
Right.
engines
What does it do?
like to keep the revs up high, and so some people stick their foot on the stick their foot into it a little bit harder. I mean, some of that stuff would be cool to see, but they're trying to make it mainstream, so it's one of those things of, only a handful of people are going to be really interested about that.
Right. And I think at the very least for the first season they did a really good job making it mainstream. I'm hoping for the second season they'll do a little bit more on the car stuff and a little bit more where it's not 100% drift focused.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it was 100% drift focused, but there was it was heavily, kind of weighed towards being able to drift your car, being able to put your car sideways or do a 360 around a cone or a barrel or something like that.
I saw a small clip of one dude's run. It was like I think it was a red 240.
Yeah, that's my guy. That's Shredder.
Was that
got the red 240? Yeah. Shredder.
So I saw the one run where it started off with he had to go down and put the nose of his car onto a stop plate or whatever, and then come out, and he did a Rockford turn, and then rolled out and started doing something else, and then he had to do the walk on water thing, and then he kind of sucked water in, and then he had to do that light box or whatever the fuck they called it.
Yeah, where you had to do the donut inside the box.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you said, a lot of it was drift related. So, like, say, people with front wheel drive cars, they wouldn't be able to do it. People
wouldn't be able to do all of it. There's some of it, like, one of the common misconceptions with front wheel drive is that you can't drift. You can't get the back end out. You can. It is 100% possible.
Not as easy as.
It's not as easy to do. It takes a little bit more skill to do, but there are things that it can't do. So, like, for instance, that particular challenge where they had the boxes and you had to go in the box and you had to do the basically a standstill donut. Like you could
Right.
only do that in a rear-wheel drive car unless,
He did it.
and I mean, you did it reverse, right? You pull in, you back, and you just. I mean, that's what. If they would have been like, Rob, hey man, you want to come to our competition? And I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'm totally bringing the DSM. And they were like, oh, you got to. That's what I would have done. I'd just been like, what else am I gonna do? You can't.
Yeah. So, like,
You,
I think what
hey, Rich, what's up, man?
what you're wanting to say is I wouldn't say get away from the drifting more, but incorporate more driving disciplines into it.
More driving disciplines, yes, absolutely. And I would take away the parts of the competition where you could only do it with a rear-wheel drive car.
Right.
And I honestly, there was that one where they had the light-up boxes, and there was one more where they had, and it was like they had the plastic K-rails set up, and there was a cone in the middle, and you had to go in and you had to do a 360 around it. And you had so much time before this water cannon dumped like 14,000 gallons of water, right? So they only did this stunt twice. The first guy gets in, he does it, gets out, the water cannon goes off, misses him. The second person goes in to do it, and they go in, and they go to rip the e-brake. Instead, the whole car just slides off to the side. And so, because it was just too wet, she couldn't get any grip on her front tires to kick out the back end. So the water cannon dumps water on her and blows out the windshield.
Oh,
and she's just got glass in her face, and then they were like, yeah, we're not going to do that one anymore. And so they let her they let her fix her car, they reran her, and then the other dude who did the thing, they cut out the amount of time that it took him to do that one obstacle. So I would just the stuff where it's like you could only possibly do this with a rear-wheel drive car,
right.
I would take that out of it. So like those small like you could do like a barrel turn with a front wheel drive car where there's a barrel, you pull up and you can go all the way around it and keep going. Like you could do that with a handbrake and some throttle. You could do that kind of stuff, or even the sideways drifting. I've seen drivers that can do the lift off, oversteer, pump the brakes, and get them sideways. You can set up the suspension on a front wheel drive to where the back end is really loose, and that kind of stuff.
Drifting on 95 Taurus.
Yeah, 95 Taurus. That's what's up.
That's awesome. Was it the SHO? Now that's. But no.
Oh man,
the
cops showed up and everything, huh?
I like. You know what? A lot of it seems to be is like they took straight up everything out of a Gymkhana video.
Well, that's what it honestly reminded me of Gymkhana so much, except for the water trap and the leveler thing.
Right.
And they had a couple things with the water cannon before it blew out that lady's windshield, and I've never actually seen like a Gymkhana competition. But it was similar to Gymkhana. It was definitely similar.
I think televising a Gymkhana competition would be pretty awesome.
It would be. You know what? I don't know what it is about our. I don't know if it's like the mainstream media or whatever it is. Like why we don't have more types of racing on TV, and why it is that NASCAR is the most popular form of racing.
Because they're afraid that you're going to see it and want to go do it. That's the reason why NASCAR is popular, because they know for a fact that it's going to cost you $100,000 just to buy the car, and not everybody's going to be able to get into it.
Well, in the NASCAR, they just, I mean, look, I know it's an oversimplification, and I know there's a lot of NASCAR fans out there. NASCAR's cool, sure. But it is just driving in a high speed circle,
right? No.
So it's not really that much like, oh, I'm gonna go do this. Like you just get on the highway and you gun it, and you're going fast, right?
I think the reason why they're trying to limit the amount of, drifting and stuff like that on regular TV is because 16-year-olds with their first car can go out and do it. And they want to try to limit that, considering that they've got, such a hard time with trying to keep people off street racing. You know what
That's
I mean?
because they don't have enough. Honestly, it's because there's not enough places for normal people to go and take their cars and race. Like
True.
I know we
True.
have drag strips here and there, and they sometimes let regular people come and drag race. But like look at even in the drag race circuit, like look at this. The no prep stuff has become extremely popular. Why? Because anybody can bring whatever they want, and oh my gosh, that's a whole lot of cat.
So what happened with Small was she got tangled. She got her fur tangled.
Was it one of those spiders? Did she get a fight with one of those massive spiders? Did it kill your cat? Lost its
No,
hair.
she got her fur tangled, and so we had to shave her.
Yeah, it happens. But anyway, like the no prep stuff is very popular because a lot of people can do it. You can go with any car you want, and you can do it, right? But there's not like in Germany, you can go to the Nürburgring on a weekend that there's not a race, and you can pay the $50 and you can drive around the track a couple times, right? Like there's not that doesn't exist here. The closest you can get to that is signing up for the autocross racing, where they cone off a parking lot, which is fun and it's awesome. It's very cool, and if you get a chance to do it, you have to go do it.
Right.
But like you can't just go. There's not just a racetrack. I can't just go down to the street, over here to Autobahn and jump on the track. It's exclusive. It's roped off. You're not allowed to go do that. There's no drift parks where the track is set up for you to go sideways and stuff. Like it just doesn't exist, and I don't know why. And I want it to exist.
Believe me, I've thought about it. I actually have I don't know if I've told you about it, but I've actually made up a plan for a motorsports park.
Like a motorsports park would be perfect.
Yeah.
Also, Rich, to answer your question, Tokyo Drift was not all front-wheel drive cars. Fast and Furious, the original, The Fast and The Furious, the original one, that was mostly front-wheel drive cars, but not all of them were front-wheel drive.
Yes. True.
But only because the maker of that went to some street race in New York where they had all front-wheel drive cars, because that's just what they had. And then
also
there's a whole thing. I could go days on Fast and Furious. That's my jam.
The reason why a lot of them are front wheel drive cars is because they did a casting call and said, "Hey, bring your." Are you seriously gonna do that?
Seriously, we better have 1 million likes right now. If you're not liking the camera cat, you have to throw down a like for the camera cat. Every time you have to hit the like button every time.
They threw out a casting call, and basically everybody who had cars out at the time, came out there. And this is back in 2001 when front wheel drive cars were the street racing, kind of kings.
Well, at the very least, they were the show car kings because, look, we grew up in a time where there was not a lot of rear-wheel drive V8 cars.
No,
they had been mostly phased out. You could go down the street and throw a coin and you will hit a front-wheel drive car. Like by the time I got my license, everything was front-wheel drive. Everything.
Because
it was very rare to get a rear-wheel drive.
Everything was cheaper.
Well, in front-wheel drive, honestly, for a daily driver, is much easier to handle.
Well, I mean, it was so much cheaper. You could put three or four, performance parts onto a front-wheel drive car for what it would cost you to do one for, a Mustang or Camaro at the time.
Right, and you could pick them up for super cheap. Super cheap.
Yeah. So I mean, for $5,000, you could have yourself a nice little race car. But
you don't know what comments I read.
For $5,000, you could barely pick up a Mustang or a Firebird or a Camaro.
Right.
So it's one of those things of you could buy the car and put some performance stuff on it for what you would normally buy another one of these other cars for.
Right. And there was a point in time where It's not like this anymore, but there was a point in time where you could pick up a Honda Civic for like 2 or 3 grand, or an Acura Integra, because they were just a dime a dozen at the time. It wasn't super popular to necessarily race them. Um, someone just asked to join All Terrain Outlaws. Absolutely, you could definitely join, bud. I hope you're all joining.
Yeah.
But there was a point in time where you could pick up a Honda Civic for really cheap and use whatever money you had left over to add, a turbo kit or nitrous kit and some sticky tires. And they would outperform a lot of the big V8 cars just based on power to weight ratio and the fact that you could do a heck of a lot more for the price range that you had. So, yeah, it's very weird. There's this very big disconnect sometimes from like our generation to some of the older generations that were like they're all muscle car all the time, and I get it because muscle cars are cool, but for us, front wheel drives were it was the only option when I could get a car. I could get a front wheel drive car, or I could get a front wheel drive car. That was it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because like you said, they were a dime a dozen. The front wheel drive cars were a dime a dozen. Everyone was getting them, and the other ones were you could get the compact cars and insure them for a lot less because they weren't considered a sports car.
Right, that too. It's not a sports car. It's front wheel drive.
The
Yeah, you can insure them so cheap.
That's why a lot of people were going to those cars because it was cheaper to upgrade them, cheaper to own them, cheaper to buy them, cheaper to insure them. So it was a win-win. So these people are, everyone who would normally grab a Mustang or a Firebird or a Camaro or whatever are running around grabbing 2 or 3 of these other cars that instead of one car, and they're having more fun with it because it's cheaper.
Yeah, and you also got to take into factor that like that early 2000s era, that's when gas prices were almost $4 a gallon. They were way, way up, and it was like that for a while. There was a time where it got over $4 a gallon. It was like there is no way any of y'all were driving V8s, and if you were making big bucks, or you were sacrificing so you could keep your V8 fueled because it was just insane. You had no choice but to get a 4-cylinder something.
Right, exactly, yeah. So I mean. And now it's kind of coming back to where people are starting to get the V8s again and starting to, go after, bigger horsepower numbers with the bigger, heck, the Trackhawks and, stuff like that. So it's interesting to watch the evolution of, what people are into.
Right. Right, you kind of see that whole like wave kind of happen. It happens from everything from sports cars to your mainstream cars to there's this like wave of where you go from massive vehicles to kind of smaller stuff that's more power to weight ratio to really compact because we have to worry about how much it's going to cost to fuel this thing. To now we're going back to gas is a little bit more reasonable, and even like you went from the station wagon to the minivan to the SUV, right? Like there's that wave of what's going on, and so it's definitely
yeah. What college were you working on the remodel for? Was it Lincoln Way South? Oh, I mean.
Lincoln Way South, isn't that a high school? You're trying to give yourself a little extra credit there, Marty.
We used to joke that ISU was we used to joke that ISU was Lincoln Way South because everyone went to college down there. But were you at U of I or whatever down there?
He was somewhere.
Yeah,
98 cents. When I started driving, gas just was $1.25.
I could fill Big Blue both tanks for $50 when I started driving.
I could fill my 1995 Ford Escort 3-door hatchback for $15, if that.
Freddie and I, in high school would get in my 200 SX,
Oh,
put $17 into it, and drive around all weekend long.
that was like the greatest times of all because yeah, it was like cost you almost no money. You could just fill the tank. You didn't have to go anywhere. You didn't have to stop. You could just keep driving. Who
Yeah,
cares? You could just keep
yeah,
driving.
yeah. That's literally all we did. We just drove around until we found something going on, and then we went and hung out. Simple as that.
I miss those days.
Yeah, good times, good times.
An 82 Cutlass. Yeah, see, that's as I say, like, you were a teen a few years before I was born, and, and you guys had like, honestly though, back then V8s were a dime a dozen. Everything had a V8 in it.
Yeah.
It was very rare to get a V6 car. And it was even more rare to get a front-wheel drive car. It wasn't very commonplace,
No,
like
really
it is
wasn't.
nowadays.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's rare to get anything that's not front-wheel drive. So,
Yeah. Or a boat.
yeah, a boat.
Fucking Challengers.
I'll tell you what, I'd totally rock one of those Challengers.
Archer
about it.
Avenue, huh? I built a McDonald's over there on Archer in Harlem. I got in trouble. We got in trouble because I got mud all over the street, and the city fined us like 10 grand or something like that. They told us we couldn't drive our trucks with mud on the street, so we had to figure out a way to knock the mud off of our trucks before we left the job site.
Yeah, Mike, you missed the hyperdrive talk. We transitioned from hyperdrive. Someone made a comment about Fast and Furious, and it just spiraled from there. We just
it's been spiraling from hyperdrive to what we would do differently for if we were to make hyperdrive, and also then it just kind of went into why people are like our age who always had like front wheel drive cars and stuff like that. Like this guy who's stuck in the 2000s.
It's just the way. It just happened, man. Just like I said, it spiraled. We just kept going down the hill.
Yep.
But yeah. But yeah, if you haven't seen Hyperdrive, definitely check it out. If you have seen Hyperdrive, let me know what you thought about it in the comments. I really enjoyed it.
I definitely have to watch it.
Oh yeah, you gotta watch it, man. You absolutely have to. It was great. Soup. Yeah, I'm not gonna live that one down, am I? We're just always gonna bring up that I mentioned how everybody makes chicken noodle soup. It's just is what it is.
Robin is food analogies.
I'm gonna stick to that one, okay? It's a true fact. It's a true thing.
That's funny.
But thank you guys all for joining us tonight. If you haven't made a comment, make sure you leave us a comment and a like, and if you could share the video out. Your guys' participation is what makes this stuff happen.
Well, you need a new car to build.
Dude,
what do you want?
I don't even know, man.
You need it lifted with fat rubbers. There's a lot of stuff you can build with 16 grand. There's a lot of stuff you could buy already lifted for 16 grand.
Lots. But I would say this is what I would recommend, Rich. Geo Metro, lifted, massive tires, huge wing. It would be awesome. Think about it. Just saying.
No FJ Cruisers. I hate those things.
You hate the FJ? I got to be honest. I don't like the FJ. I would go for out of those three, I would take the Bronco all day long. Lifted out back, I'd be down for that.
What Bronco or Blazer are we talking about? Are we talking 90s Bronco Blazers, or are we talking like old K5 Blazer dent side Bronco?
I don't care which Bronco you get. I would be all about the Bronco. I'm just saying. Okay.
Title?
Not drunk. I'm just slightly buzzed, okay? Look, Out of those three choices, I don't care what Blazer you. I don't like the Blazers at all. I would go Bronco all day long. Yeah, the FJ Cruiser just doesn't. It's probably right up his. Honestly, though, Marty, like Rich's style, he likes those Toyotas. That FJ Cruiser is
Well,
probably like right up his alley.
if you're gonna stick to that time frame 75 to 85, I'd definitely go with the FJ Cruiser then. But if you're going with one of the new like rebuilt FJs,
Hey, according to Toyota, the new FJ Cruiser is the ultimate off-road vehicle.
75 to 85 Bronco, definitely.
No, honey, I didn't drink all of your twisted teas. Just some of them.
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the K5 Blazers were nice, but I'm still a big fan of them Broncos.
Oh, a little bit of controversy going on here. So we got a whole bunch of FJ Cruiser haters. It's one of those cars that is very niche. Like either you love it or you hate it.
The FJ I didn't like. I didn't like when they brought it back, and it just didn't look right. And honestly, the funny thing about it was never supposed to be built.
Yeah, it wasn't. Oh man, did you see that? You see that donut up to speed on the? I was digging it.
I was gonna watch it, but I mean that FJ was never supposed to be built. And then people are like, "Oh, we want it," and I've never understood why people wanted it. It's just I've always thought they were just ugly garbage.
They were just weird. They're just weird looking to me. I think they just look like that. It just looks weird. But yeah, like you said, they weren't supposed to be built. A bunch of people were all about it, and Toyota was like, "Oh, okay, cool. We'll build it then." And they had what, like 6 months or not? Was it 6 months to a year to actually manufacture the actual car, to take it from concept to production? It wasn't very long.
I don't know exactly how long it was, but it wasn't very long at all to like you said, to take it from production from concept to production. Yeah, it was pretty short. But I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't know why people think those are good looking. They're just garbage looking.
I don't know. I like them in red. Why did people get the PT Cruiser? It was different and weird. Like, honestly, the PT Cruiser was, at the time, honestly, I'm going to be honest with everybody here, okay? Just this is just, a little open honesty session here. When the PT Cruiser first came out, I thought it was cool looking.
Well, see, people thought it was cool looking because people thought it was cool looking because it looked retro, and right. At the time, retro was in. I mean, look at the SSR, look at the Prowler. All those cars that were kind of looked like older hot rods. Everyone was like, "Oh, right. I need to get one of those." And
right. A few years later, they redid the Mustang to make the Mustang retro. Yeah, and then when that took,
they did the same. They followed suit with the Camaro, and then they followed suit with the Challenger. So I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, I would go with either the Midnight Blue, or I really like the red. If you're gonna go with the FJ Cruiser, I like the red one. I don't know why. I think the red kind of smooths out those weird lines.
I'm not a fan of red.
Why?
I don't know.
I can't imagine why you wouldn't like red at all.
I don't like red. I don't. I'm not a big fan of red vehicles.
Not even my red vehicle?
I didn't say I'm not a fan of your red vehicle. I said just red.
You said red vehicles. I own one. I'm asking because I got to know. I'm not going to sleep well at night not knowing the answer.
I'm gonna come over to your house and spray paint it a different color.
No, the red. Don't get the maroon. The maroon is a bad idea. Okay. If anybody's like, should I get the maroon? Whatever. No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Oh man. Well, I think it's about that time.
I think so. We're getting down to it. We've gone off the rails plenty. I think.
Yeah. Definitely. All right. Well, like we've said already, go check out the videos over on YouTube. Rob's got a handful of pretty awesome episodes out there. Check us
just
out.
uploaded a couple new videos today,
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
I'll have to go check those out.
This will be up there.
Um,
If you missed most of this, you can check this out. I mean, it'll be here in a few hours on Facebook, but you can check it out tomorrow on YouTube. You can check this video out. Should be good to go?
nope, not gonna happen.
Do it, Rich. Do it. Go with the
Not gonna
FJ
happen.
Cruiser. Just do
Not
it.
gonna happen.
Just be weird. Just be
I'm just-
different. Just do it.
I'm just gonna
Just
give you
do it.
crap the whole time. Check us out on the Instagram. Both of us have go check out Rob with Riding with Rob, and then the page itself has Altering Outlaws. And share this out with your friends. I mean, get as many people in here as possible. We're working on
sharing and
make
liking is what we really need, you guys. So we really need your guys' shares. We really need your guys' likes. Thank you so much for all your comments tonight. It's been awesome. So much fun hanging out with y'all.
Right.
Until next week, Marty.
Sounds good.
Later, guys.
Peace.